Hey y'all, Wacky here with another Dwarf Fortress tutorial. Last episode we talked about digging and channeling and doing things with the Designations menu that generally involve going down into the world and exploring the Z levels of Dwarf Fortress and talking about what those Z levels actually meant and how we interacted with those things. In this episode we're going to finish out the Designations menu, so I'm going to go ahead and hit D for Designations. By default the chop down trees option is selected. Lowercase t will get you there if it wasn't already selected. And for this, we just want to maneuver our cursor around, press enter in some spot, move over, and encompass a large area that contains several trees. Then you'll see those trees then get highlighted, meaning they have been selected or designated to be chopped down. Now, chopping down trees is a relatively safe activity for your woodcutter. Any objects that are in the trees when they're chopped down will take falling damage, so if it's a living thing it could possibly die, especially if it's a dwarf or one of your animals or something. Also, any objects that are in the trees could strike your woodcutter as they fall. The logs themselves will not. Your woodcutter is safe from those, but objects in the trees could potentially strike your woodcutter and do some damage to them or actually kill them. So things to be aware of as you're going around chopping down trees. The next option, lowercase p, is to gather plants. Same thing, we want to move our cursor, press enter, and then maneuver it so we select a large area of plants. And harvesting those is going to get us some food, generally fruit and things like that. We can eat those, or we can process those into seeds, which we can then plant in an above ground area to get a variety of crops to use for alcohol production, food production, things like that. It's useful to know that gathering plants is an inefficient way of getting food relative to farming, but early game it's very easy. There's a lot of it out there if you choose a good embark site, so it's a very good method for getting food in the early game. Okay, the rest of our options involve being down inside the world, so we're going to maneuver down a little bit. I've already got a little area prepared. I'm going to move down a few Z levels, and you can see this little down ramp here that I've constructed into this little area where I've started to do some of these other things on the Designations menu. I'm going to go ahead and hit S for smooth stone, and where my cursor is, this wall right here on the right side, this is already smooth stone. This is where I went ahead before this video and smoothed things out. Your dwarf with the stone detailing labor will be the one that comes in and smooths out all this stone. Now, smooth stone looks pretty on its own, but it is sort of a precursor to doing some of these other things on the Designations menu. So you have to smooth the stone before you do these other things I'm about to talk about. If we press the E key, this will be to engrave stone, and we'll select an area of that, and our stone detailing dwarf again will come in and he'll engrave some things. And so this is pretty cool. I'm going to back out of the Designations menu. I'm going to hit K so we can take a closer look at some things. And you'll see as I hover over where this was engraved, in the top right up here it tells me that this is a detailed slate wall, and I can press enter to view it, and I get to actually see what my dwarf has carved or engraved onto that wall. So it's a pretty cool thing there. One thing about engraving is that it does raise the value of your fortress, so nice fortresses have engraved walls. This makes you more susceptible to being raided by goblins and the other evil things in the world, more susceptible for thieves to come around and start stealing things from you. So it's not very good to do it in the early game. In the early game you want to kind of keep a low profile while you get your military and things built up. But in the late game it's a really cool thing to do. So I'm going to head back into the Designations menu, and then I'm going to hit capital F for carve fortifications. Now fortifications are basically small holes that we're going to be putting into the wall. And what it does is it allows us to shoot projectiles through that wall. So this will be a good setup to have, sort of an archery room kind of off to the side here. And if this is the main entryway into my fortress, they can have some fortifications down along this wall. So any invaders, thieves, whatever that come in will be subject to my archer's fire. So that's what fortifications are used for. For the most part, living things cannot pass through fortifications. There are a few exceptions to that. Also, liquids can generally pass through fortifications. So fortifications, it's holes in the wall. Liquids can pass through it. But for the most part, most things cannot pass through. The next thing on the Designations menu is carving a track, so capital T. This is for mine carts. So you'll need to carve a track in smooth stone walls in order for your mine carts to move around. This is, of course, more mid-late game Dwarf Fortress. Mine carts, it's going to take you a while to get into those things. But it does require a smooth stone wall, and it is on the Designations menu, so I thought it useful to explain it. The last couple items we're going to talk about are removing designations. So in allows you to remove any constructed buildings, so any workshops or things you've built, including your wagon that you embarked in. This allows you to remove those constructions. The X key, if you've designated something that you want to go and remove that designation, the X key allows you to do so. The last thing we're going to talk about is the B key for set building and item properties. So we hit the B key, and this gives us a small sort of utility type thing that allows us to do things like reclaim items from garbage dumps to forbid items from being used for certain tasks. It allows us to melt items. Most usefully, it allows us to dump items. So if we hit D, we can designate all of this stone that's just laying around on the floors of our fortress to be dumped. Now, of course, my dwarfs here are not going to dump this stone because there's nowhere to dump it. I have not designated a garbage dump yet. But if I had, they would come in and they would pick all this stone up and move it into that garbage dump, which is an aesthetic thing, right? It keeps your fortress looking clean and nice. We can also designate things to not be dumped, so I can undesignate that. And then we can also hide items. So instead of dumping these things, I can actually just hide them and not have them visible. So they'll be hidden, and then I won't know they're there unless I come back into this menu and unhide them. And with that, we're finished with the Designations menu. So thanks for watching. I hope you learned something. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below, and I will see you next time.